Hello everybody, welcome back to Momo vs. MTG. Today, we'll be taking a look at another one of my personal commander decks that I enjoy playing, Denry Klin, Editor-in-Chief. For 2 generic mana and Azorius, we get a legendary creature, Cat Advisor. Denry enters the battlefield with your choice of a +1/+1 first strike or vigilance counter on it. Whenever a non-token creature you control enters the battlefield, if Denry has counters on it, put the same number and kind of counters on that creature. So we are in a creature-focused deck. We have 34 creatures that we are currently running, and it is a counters matter kind of deck. All variety of counters in the form of hexproof, lifelink, death touch, you name it. We're trying to get all these counters onto our commander. And let's dive into how we're going to be doing that. First off, I like to take a look at the ramp package. I chose a pretty generic and standard ramp package with your cheaper signets, arcane signet. Relic of Legend works really well here with our commander. We usually don't want to be attacking with them. Always a nice mana rock. Soul Ring. Solemn's an especially nice one because early on he'll get you a land and a card, and later on when we have a lot of counters on a commander, it can be a big beater. And of course, one of my personal favorites are the Archaeomancer and Land Tax package, the white catch-up ramp with these two combined. And on a side note here, Lotus Field feeds into that. I have some decks that go hard down this route of ramping from behind. And then most of the other part of this deck is focusing on what kind of counters we can get. So we want anything from shield counters, flying counters, lifelink +1s, and anything else you can name of that we can achieve in our colors. And the reason why I chose Denry for this deck is there's a the Myojin package works really well here. So we will find these funny Myojins here. So we have the 4 Myojin that fit in our colors. Myojin of the Blooming Dawn, the Cleansing Fire, Cryptic Dreams, and Searing Winds. This Myojin here was my inspiration to create a deck like this, and I feel like it works pretty well. So Myojin of Cryptic Dreams reads, Myojin of Cryptic Dream enters the battlefield with an indestructible counter on it if it was cast from your hand. Remove an indestructible counter from Myojin of Cryptic Dreams. Copy target permanent spell you control 3 times. So this is a really fun card. And there's all sorts of shenanigans you can pull off with this. You know, the obvious way to get this counter is just hard casting it. But there are other methods, which is part of the deck was built around. You know, for example, we are trying to get an indestructible counter on our commander, because that means even if we cast, you know, a Myojin or not, we can still put the indestructible counter on one of these. You know, for instance, we have Tyrant Sanctum, which would be our main source of getting this indestructible counter. It is a long process over the course of 2 turns of turning legendary creature into a god. Puts a +1/+1, which is nice, but then the third ability here, Sacrifice Tyrant Sanctum, put an indestructible counter on target god. So then, not only is our commander indestructible and will give all our creatures coming in indestructible, which is great, it will furthermore put the indestructible counter on our Myojin for free. And you know, because of that, we have some discard outlets to put one of these Myojins in the graveyard and then reanimate it with like something like a Mirror of the Sky Ruin, Guardian Scalelord's new one I added, deals with counters, also recursion. Invoke Justice is very nice on her commander, one of the Myojins. And then Loyal Retainers is great as well, since it's a very cheap creature. That could also return our legendary creatures to the battlefield, whether it be our commander or one of the Myogens. Um, and secondly, with this package here, the older Myogens deal with a different kind of counter. So it's kind of twofold. We're looking for indestructible, and we're looking for divinity counters. This Myogen here is a board wipe, so long as you cast it, because then you can put a divinity counter on this, and then removing a divinity counter destroys each other creature. So a board wipe on a creature is very nice, but only works with divinity counters. So we're looking indestructible, and then we're looking for divinity counters. And nicely, we have at least two ways to do this with Kindred Boon and that which is taken. So Kindred Boon, we could either name one of the Myogens or our commander here, Cat Advisor, one or the other. And we put a divinity counter on it. And so long as we have Kindred Boon or that which was taken on the battlefield, each permanent with divinity counter is indestructible, which is great as well. So another protection for a commander, and also works great with the other two Myogens. Myogen of the Searing Winds deals with drawing cards, which is expensive but a very powerful effect. So that's the main focus of the deck, is to get one of these off. But secondary to that, beating down with flying creatures, all these small creatures in particular that are to be getting buffed with big counters is great. So the type of counters I'm looking for are +1/+1s in particular as well. We have Animal Sanctuary here, I'd like to point out. Works great because of a creature type is a cat. So repeatable building our commander up is great. Noble Heritage I love this card. It's a great card. Every turn you get to put 2 +1/+1s on your commander, and decent amount of time the opponents will take this opportunity to also grow their creatures, and then you gain protection from that player, which is great. So it's a twofold package of protecting yourself and growing your commander, which is nice. Other counters, Lifelink, Gladriel, a new one who just came out, who can potentially put a Vigilance and a Lifelink counter on commander, so you're doing two things at once, which is great. Also doubles that protection. Then we have, Wingspan Mentor, Flying Counter, great. Non-human, that's her cat. And an all-star in a deck are these two here. Scavenger Brawler. So for 6 mana, get an artifact creature construct. It's got Flying, Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink, great. What we really want is this in our graveyard, because we can pay 5. Exile Scavenge Brawler from your graveyard. Choose target creature. Put 4 +1/+1s, a Flying, Vigilance, Trample, and a Lifelink counter on that creature. So this covers a lot of what we're trying to do here. Getting this Scavenger Brawler into the graveyard is great, because turn after, for that same turn, we could put all these type of counters on our commander, and then every creature coming in is going to be having the same counters. So we have Avenger Hunter Bonder, which I think is fantastic. It puts double strike counters on creatures. So the package of all these different kind of counters is great. And the fun part is we have all the effects that allow us to move the counters around. So we have, starting off, Goldberry River Daughter. This legendary creature allows you to move a counter of each kind not on Goldberry River Daughter from another target permanent you control onto Goldberry. Then move one or more counters from Goldberry onto another target permanent you control if you do draw a card. So this is a way to move counters around, which is great. Nesting Ground is a land, which is almost free to add in most decks. And for 1 mana, you can move a counter around. Then you have Resourceful Defense, which is an all-star. This is basically a second Ozolith, if not better. So whenever another permanent you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on target permanent you control. This is great. They exile something, doesn't matter. As long as it leaves the battlefield, you're moving counters around. And then for 5 mana, you can move all the counters from target permanent you control to another one. So we can start building our commander up and up until all these creatures are coming in with huge amounts of counters. Same with the Ozolith, right? This one's only for creatures in particular, and you get to put those counters onto the Ozolith and beginning combat, move those counters to target creature. So these two are great at protecting our counters, which is pretty vital in case they do remove our commander here. We can replay it and then move them back potentially. And then for counter spells, we're running 4 here. I usually don't run a lot of counter spells in my decks, either 4 or 5. This is perfect in my eyes. It works out for me. And we have all these different types of creatures that help move our game plan forward. So something like a Crystalline Giant. This is a fun one because you're getting all sorts of counters. Of course, the one everyone's looking for is the Hexproof counter, or Death Touch is great. But any counter you get on this Crystalline Giant, potentially if it's removed, or with the Ozolith or Resourceful Defense, you can move this over onto your commander. Especially if it's a Hexproof counter, that's fantastic. Helps keep your commander around and everything else. We have all these creatures that are usually good value creatures, but if they're coming in with additional counters because of our commander, then it just gets better. So one of the all-stars I'll be taking a look at is Mold Drifter. Enters the battlefield, draws 2 cards. For a creature on a buy, draws 2 cards, and if you have like 5+1/+1s, a first strike, lifelink counter, this is going to be one of the scariest Mold Drifters you've ever seen. And then I think one of the absolute best cards in this deck is Champion of Wits. Because if you have 5+1/+1 counters, you cast Champion of Wits, stack the triggers so that Denry sees Champion of Wits enters first, moves the counters onto Champions of Wits. Let's say 5, for instance, right? So 5+1/+1 counters, it's going to be a 7/6. When it enters the battlefield, you may draw cards equal to its power. So you'll draw 7 cards and discard 2. For 3 mana, fantastic. Of course, Eternalize is great. Repeat it on later on. And yeah, this is the general gist of the deck. And we go over here a couple more ways of, how to make this game plan happen. So we have our couple land tutors here. Tolarian West, for a transmute, go get a 0 CMC, which can be another land, which is usually going to be Tiring Sanctum or something else later on. Weathered Wayfarer, same deal, so long as you're behind in land drops of an opponent. For a white, you can go tutor up your Tyrant Sanctum. And then further on, we have a couple, Ghostly Prism Propaganda, a couple things for, protecting yourself, which is pretty important if you're trying to build up this commander here. So this is, kind of the, longer term building value over time kind of commander. You're not looking to win the game off the bat. And then a couple protection spells for our creatures, since we are a creature focused board. In case a board wipe happens, some target removal. Guardian of Fate's probably your best option here because this is a creature. You can stack the triggers so that Dendry sees Guardian Faith, and then also protect everything else. Cyber Cryptomancer. Apologies for my English. This is another one, which is nice protection if single target removal spell for 2 mana. You give it hexproof and a ++1 counter. Not a hexproof counter, but at least the +1/+1 counter for temporarily. And Together Forever is an all-star. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on 2 separate creatures, and you can also return a creature back to your hand if it gets killed in combat, sent to the graveyard. So, looking decent amount of protection, especially with indestructible, and then protecting yourself from not losing the game. And this is the general overview of this deck. 3 board wipes here. We have Vanquish the Horde, Farewell, and the Eternal Wanderer. So we have diversification and the type of board wipe removal we can do. And then we have our singleton removal. Shine Wind is a fun one because it is a creature. Deals with counters. And then if you have a lot of +1/+1 counters, repeatable enchantment destruction. Very nice. Storm the Feathers. Storm of Forms is a nice fit here because you have a lot of different counters. You can choose which permanents you want to bounce back to someone's hand. And then another fantastic fit here is Vanish into Memory. This reads, exile target creature, you draw cards equal to that creature's power. So if you have, let's say again, Champion Wits out, right, with 5 +1/+1 counters. So you're going to draw 7 cards, right? What happens then? At the beginning of your next upkeep, return that card under its owner's control. If you do, discard card equal to that creature's toughness. So you can resolve Vanquish into Memories trigger first, then have Denry see Champion Wits enters again, put those counters back onto Champion Wits, and you're drawing a ton of cards, discarding very little, and on top of it all, if you have an Ozolith out, a Resourceful Defense, you're moving counters left and right and accruing so much value, not only growing your creatures, but getting value on top of that. And a little bit what I started to mess with, I need a little more experience playing with is ninjutsu, because this allows you to, bounce another creature later on. Let's say that's Solemn Simulacrum. Attack with him, he's unblocked. Return it to your hand. You're getting counters on him again, and then moving them again with the Ozolith or Resourceful Defense, which is fantastic. And with double ninjutsu, you can, accrue this value over and over again. Another effects you can put in, is blinking effects. I don't have too many of them in, Vanquish into Memory, Eternal Wanderer counts. You can also blink your creatures. It's another way to, get really, really big value. Yeah. So this has been Denry, Editor-in-Chief, Commander Deck. If you enjoyed this, you'd like me to take a look at something else, let me know down in the comments below. If not, thanks for hanging out, and if you consider dropping a like or subscribing, that'd be fantastic, and I look forward to the next one. Thank you.